In my opinion, one of the big things that separates amateur productions from professional productions is how the set is decorated. We call the process of decorating the set dressing the set, because we're not always decorating it. Sometimes we're actually destroying it or cleaning it. Professional productions tend to care more about how everything, wardrobe, hair, locations, how all these things are utilized to tell the story. Nothing is an accident. The way that you dress a set goes really far in creating a mood and telling a story. Although we intentionally went for the look of a dying and primitive civilization, we still decorated the set. On the first day, we brought a faux fur blanket from home and hung it up on the back of the wall of the hut. It wasn't obvious, but it helped to give the hut not only a more primitive feel, but also to make the set look more lived in. It also didn't end up showing on camera, but we had blankets and pillows too. And that's really the key to good set design. You're trying to get into the heads of these characters and tell a story with the set. Tayani and Cordelia live here, and they hide out from everyone, so it would have pillows and blankets and food and supplies and stuff. On the next day, we had the big council room scene. We looked for a location for the scene for a long time, and when we found this spot, it didn't exactly look like a council room scene. But I thought that if we moved these unusually heavy benches and set up hanging fabric, we could make it feel like a portable tabernacle, similar to something that might be found in ancient biblical times or something. Unfortunately, light showed through our burlap, which made everything feel really cheap and amateurish. So our key grip, Matt Harrison, and Joel, our PA, would set up thick black cloth or carpets or whatever we could find, and they would hang those up on C-stands behind whatever section we were shooting in front of. The assurance mural was also a part of the set dressing. I wanted it behind the trio of guys here, almost as if it was like the thing giving the council their power or their authority to speak. To make the big mural, my wife Heather sewed together huge pieces of burlap. Then we painted the mural with black paint based on the original drawing by Brad Singley that the preacher held up. Now, it's definitely obvious that Brad's talent for art is far, far superior to what we could do, but I think that's okay in this world. Drawing the assurance is like a religious offering or practice in this culture, so they should feel kind of crude. I was also able to recycle that big mural when I shot the opening title sequence. I love the way that the black paint on this burlap looked up close. We'll look more at shooting the opening title sequence in the next training series on cinematography if that interests you. We also used leftover burlap for the sixth scene that I hung up on some C-stands and backdrop stands, similar to what I've done here behind me. I painted a rough assurance on burlap with chalk so that we know this woman was a believer. We also accented the set with candles, not only so that we'd have motivation for warm light, but also so that it felt like a more somber and intimate scene. For that set, we also used some leftover black net type fabric that we got at a local dollar store for Halloween, which I hung up over a black photography backdrop. Kind of like with burlap, I love that drooping, intricate texture it creates. Now, even though burlap is the absolute worst texture imaginable, we decided early on that this is just the texture that typifies this whole world. Because let's face it, you're not going to be wearing burlap if there's any other option. It feels really crude and unpolished, uncomfortable. It has a really interesting texture that looks a lot more rich and detailed than plain fabric. On the final day of production, we didn't have too much in the way of set design, as the environment already kind of looked like we wanted it. But Stephen Heller is great at making fire, and there was that amazing fire pit, so I had to make a big fire, and the smoke from that added a lot to the scene. Technically, that was also dressing the set. For a pickup shot that we ended up deleting, we had to create a pile of unspeakable rotting things. In order to make this stuff moldy, we actually had loaves of bread and old flowers and fruit and stuff donated from friends and local markets. We stored all this in a corner of our garage for weeks. It was awful. But I didn't want to do like computer-generated mold or decay. I wanted the real thing. I don't know that it's super obvious just how disgusting this rotting pile actually is, so I'd probably change the set a bit more to get rid of the leaves and elements that aren't as decayed if I were to do it again. I also might have gotten more obviously rotting elements right up against the camera. But overall, I'm happy with the way this shot turned out, even though we didn't use it. Next, we'll look at using even more burlap, but for people dressing this time.